My name's Alex, and I wasted the last 10 years of my life on social media comparing myself to others. It has made me so unhappy in life, and I want to tell you about it before it's too late. But before I get into it, I kind of want to tell you my backstory and how I got into social media to begin with. So, I got my iPod Touch in the sixth grade, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And the iPod Touch was significant because it had the Apple App Store. And what came out when I was in sixth grade? Instagram. And at first, I thought Instagram was just like the coolest thing ever. I remember posting pictures of myself, of my clothes, of my food. I would just post whatever. You know what I mean? There were no rules. You could literally post whatever. I remember posting a picture of this big spider that I was scared of. And the more my friend and I kept using Instagram and kept unfollowing people at school, the more of these unspoken rules started becoming a thing. Where if you didn't post a specific aesthetic, you didn't post certain poses or certain colors, then you were going to get unfollowed. And if you got unfollowed, then it wasn't cool. If you didn't have X amount of followers, then you weren't cool. You couldn't get invited to the cool kids' parties. And at that time, right before then, I had quite a few friends. I was getting invited to parties. I was doing things with my friends. I had a lot of them. People wanted to hang out. And the more and more I started using Instagram, the more and more I stopped living my life. The more and more I started watching other people live their life. And when you start watching other people live their life and not living your life, you become unhappy. You become miserable. You become, I don't know, you just start losing the life force. And when that happens, people don't want to do things with you. When that happens, you start spending more and more time watching other people live the life that you want to live. So that kind of led me to watching YouTube. And this is embarrassing for me to say, but I was watching a lot of Pokemon YouTubers. Before I got into that, I started playing video games. I started wasting years of my life sitting there on the couch, playing my Nintendo DS, accomplishing absolutely nothing except wasting some of the best years of my life. And that transpired into something even more embarrassing. I started watching people play Pokemon. I started watching people play video games. I used to watch King Nappy, Shofu, just sitting there playing Pokemon, sitting on the couch, doing absolutely nothing with my life. Don't get me wrong, these people are amazing. They're amazing entertainers. But I got nothing out of that. Nothing added to my life. And I became very, very weak. And then I started watching Trisha Paytas. And at first, I thought she was just like super funny. She was the funniest troll on the internet, right? And then you watch more and more of her and you can't stop watching her. She's amazing at entertaining. She has one of the best personalities on the internet. She's really good at what she does. And as a man, I mean, that's a pretty strong indicator that you're gay if you watch her. But as a man, you start picking up on her mannerisms because the more time you spend watching her, the less time you're spending with people in real life, the more you're just picking up on these mannerisms. And these mannerisms aren't real, they're for YouTube videos. But you don't know that. You stop, figuring out what's real and what's not. The way they talk to people, like other YouTubers, the things they say, the way they say it, they overshare, they gossip, they talk about things that they probably shouldn't talk about, that they never would talk about to people in real life. You stop realizing what's real and what's not real. You start losing touch with reality. And a lot of them, you start watching like Jeffree Star, you start watching Shane Dawson, and a lot of them come from money or they're very, very talented and they have things that you don't have. And this is going to sound cliche and cringy, but like you can't lust over what your neighbor has. You can't do that because it leads to a really unhappy life, just like it did for me. because you start seeing people with more talent than you. You start seeing people with more money than you. You start seeing people with yachts and boats, and then they're hanging out with people who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on plastic surgery. And that's the crazy thing about YouTube is you can just search up anything, cooking, eating, sports, music. I used to play the cello and I could see all of the number one cellists in the world, and then I would compare myself directly to them. And a lot of these people that are the top of the top, they don't have a lot of skill. They have a lot of talent. Don't get me wrong, they probably put in so many hours, but a lot of it is talent. They were born doing these things from a very young age. I mean, if you look at like a 4-year-old playing Chopin nocturnes on the piano, most 4-year-olds cannot do that, no matter how many hours they practice piano a day. They don't do that. So you're sitting here lusting over these people on YouTube that you don't even know. You wouldn't even have known they existed without YouTube. You're sitting there lusting over them. Oh my God, they're so good. And then you spend more and more time watching them. And then when you try to like reproduce anything they do, you just get hit with concrete in the face. It looks like a hot tub, and then you jump in and it's a cold plunge. It hurts so freaking bad, dude. And then you do that over and over and over, and you start doubting yourself. And I'm telling you, like, it's what happened to me. It's what made me one of the most unhappiest people ever. And I kept thinking about, like, where did my life go wrong? Because before 6th grade, before I had an iPod Touch, my life was really happy. I had quite a few friends. I was somewhat normal. I loved playing with Kinects and Legos. I loved building stuff. I loved sports. I loved tennis. I loved soccer. I loved basketball. I loved doing so many things. I played the cello. And then the more I started watching YouTube, the more like hyper competitive, to the point where it was just becoming degenerate, dude. I'm comparing myself to like the number ones that I have no chance of ever achieving, that are so talented, and they don't have any verbal skills to describe how they got those skills to begin with, because it's talent. They were born with it. And don't even get me started on the looks maxer. If you want to look at people and compare your wealth, or you want to look at your looks, your physicality, you're comparing yourself to people who got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of plastic surgery done to them so that they can have other people lust over them. I forgot what his name is. Clavicles has so much plastic surgery, so many substances and things that the general public don't have that he's taking. And then what happens 5 or 10 years later? All of these stars go homeless because they can't, they get so burned out. They're doing all these substances, all these things for the views, and it's not sustainable. Unless you have that small talent, it's not sustainable. A lot of them die premature lives, dude, and they normalize it because they don't talk about that on the stream. It's Hollywood. It's fake. They spend all this money on the productions, on the sets, on people, on managers, on people to make them look and to get other people to lust after them. And when new people turn 18, that's immediately when they throw thousands of dollars to go get them into these like surgeries and to do all these fillers and like make them as lustful as possible so that they can get all these sponsorships and money and like, you know, use these influencers. And if you start comparing yourself, you're going to quickly realize that you'll never achieve anything that they have ever. And what's sad is that they don't talk about it, so they normalize it. And if you're young and there's no warning, it's really hard to distinguish. And you don't know that it's wrong because there's hundreds and thousands of comments. You think it's normal. And it feels good. And everyone else is looking down on their phone. So you think it's normal. And it's not. The last thing I want to talk about is how people act way different online than they do in real life. So when I was watching a bunch of YouTubers like Trisha Paytas, Shane Dawson, etc., they don't talk like normal people. It's way different when you're oversharing your life, you're talking about drama, you're doing anything and everything to get views because your paycheck depends on it. So you're going to say anything and everything to get that paycheck. And you're not making any kind of valuable video that leaves your video viewers with something. You can't figure out how, if it's normal, if it's not normal. You start mimicking them uncontrollably. They start playing around in your head, and you start thinking thoughts that you never would have thought about before. And you get in this endless cycle of it just nonstop playing in your head. And you're like, shit, you're starting to turn into a different person. And the saddest part is you start forgetting how to talk to people. And when you can't talk to people, you start watching more YouTube, and the cycle just never ending, perpetuates. And no one tells you how to get out of it. It's the worst thing that I've ever experienced in my life. And I had no idea it was so bad. I would say it's more bad than smoking a cigarette a day. Comparing yourself to other people is going to make you extremely unhappy. It's going to make you lose your confidence, and you don't know what you're going to do in life. And the last thing I want to say is I want to give you some hope. It takes years to get out of it. Every YouTube video, every self-help YouTube video is going to be like, how can you do XYZ in 30 seconds, in 2 minutes, in a day? Change everything about your life in a day. Change everything you've done in the last 10 years in a day. And they lie. They lie to you. Don't even get me started on those YouTube cook videos, those YouTube cooking tutorials. Have you guys seen all those YouTube shorts? How to make XYZ recipe in under 30 seconds? And then they introduce 15 or 20 steps. And it's all of these 1-second clips. They probably spent 4 or 5 hours making this amazing food. And you're like, wow, I want to try it. It looks so delicious. And then when you reproduce it, it takes hours a day. And if you make 3 of those meals, you spent the whole day cooking and you did absolutely nothing with your life. But there is hope. There is hope. And the one thing I'm going to say is if something is not adding to your life, whether it be a friend, a video, and it's just bad for you, it's junk food, you have to get rid of it. Even though you should be able to control it, you have to get rid of it. It's not worth it. Get it out of your house. Get it out of your life. Uninstall it. Or set rules, set the timer, give yourself 15, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and that's it. You will waste your life, and it will go by in a blink of an eye. I had no idea that this would happen to me. I had no idea, no indicators. I said no to drugs. I said no to alcohol for a long time. And I thought I was doing the right things. I had no idea that this technology and the choices I made was undermining everything in my life. And I want you to know that. So I hope you got something out of this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.